Well, I ran into Keith at the post office and talked him into letting me interview him. He's a very interesting man, one of the most interesting people in Menard, I think. Can you tell us a little about yourself, Keith?
Born in England, just before the start of World War II in Europe, evacuated at, not to my memory, but at the age of 6 months, to the West Country in the county of Somerset. We arrived early enough that my mother found a place that she could rent immediately, so we only lived with other people for 2 weeks before we had our own cottage. This is all that I was told when I was old enough to understand.
How long were you there?
We stayed there the rest of my mother died there.
Really? That's
The
terrible.
street that she grew up on in London, with several of her sisters having houses in the same street, her parents, she did, that street was totally destroyed by German air raids during World War II and never rebuilt.
For heaven's
You know,
sake.
if you went there today, where that street once existed is a large block of apartments. The street no longer exists.
Yeah. Well, you and I are the same age. I know you hate to admit that. But I think people that are the same age you have so many past experiences that you match that it becomes interesting to visit with them. So tell me about you were 17 years old, drunk in New York City.
I went to sea at 16. On the first trip, we went to our first port of call. The first foreign port that I went to was Hoboken, New Jersey, and I wondered what all the fuss was about America, because Hoboken, New Jersey, in those days, the only famous thing that existed was that Frank Sinatra's parents lived there, and there was a bar you could go to and meet them and buy them a beer if you wanted. I never did. Never did like Frank Sinatra's singing anyway. But it was interesting to be running around New York at 16, 17, 18 years old. We didn't earn much money, but we did very well at all-you-can-eat places. They liked us to be there because we ate so much for 50 cents or 25 cents, whatever it was in those days. But we went to New York because tying up in New Jersey, the drinking age was 21, whereas in New York State, across the river, was only 18. And at 16, if you don't have a photograph ID, you can usually talk someone into the fact that you're 18. And so we got to drink more in New York than we did in New Jersey.
Now, what was your occupation at this time?
I was an apprentice or cadet in the British Merchant Marine. It's where you live with the officers and they give you a little sailor suit that you wear. You eat with the officers and you work with the crew. And anything that's too dirty and nasty for the crew to do, the cadets did it.
Oh, well, now, my information is that you were a sea captain. Is that correct?
Later in life, yeah, after I finished my apprenticeship, I was on third mate on a freighter in Canada, and somebody showed me a brochure of these sailboats in the in the Bahamas, and pictures of passengers in bikinis, and that attracted me.
Oh, okay. Is that where you met Marilyn?
On that company, which I got to, what happened is I went back to England, thought about this, and thought, well, I'm 21, 22, whatever. Why not? So I had to figure out how to. They said they would hire me, but I had to make my own way to Miami. Long before there was reasonable air flights, didn't have that much money anyway. So I worked as an extra officer on a cargo ship from England to Montreal for no pay, but they let me off in Montreal, and I caught a bus from Montreal to Miami. When I got to Miami, I had a job.
You were 21?
22, I think,
22.
maybe 23. I don't remember.
Yeah. So, at some point, you married and had a son, because I know you visit him regularly, and his name is what?
James, he likes to call himself. His name's Joel, but
Okay.
he uses James.
And where does he live now? And
South Carolina.
okay. And I'm kind of condensing your life. At some point, he met Marilyn Wheelis, daughter of a pioneer family here in Menard County. She's a character, love her too. How many years have y'all been married now?
Oh. I met her in 67. So we've been together 52 years. Does that
Yeah.
make it? And
Don't ask me.
I don't know. I can't do the arithmetic in my head.
I
But we've
can't
been
either.
married about 47 years, but I
Yeah.
was married once before, and Marilyn was not the other woman in that breakup, thank goodness, and gets on very well with my ex-wife.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, okay, now I play bridge with you, and I'm not a member anymore, but we used to be in the same club until all the people died. Kind of depressing. So it's now been condensed from 3 clubs down to 1. And you are a good bridge player. I enjoy playing bridge with you. And right now, let's see, what's going on in your life right now? What are your interests? Reading,
Reading
of course.
mainly.
Yeah.
Mainly reading, and trying not to watch the news because it depresses me so much.
I don't ever watch any political stuff. It's just horrible.
Well, if you grow up at my age, you grew up with all the fascism in Europe,
Right.
with the Mussolinis and the Francos and the Hitlers.
And I am your age. You can see a
So-
similarity today.
Yes.
It is very scary. I think we need somebody young, because as an old person, I know my mind is crazy. So let's find somebody young one of these days. Everybody else is bound to die out pretty soon. So, what are your hobbies besides reading?
Cooking, I like cooking.
Yeah, I do too. Do you still hunt arrowheads?
No, last time I went, managed to come across 4 snakes, and I decided from now on the snakes can have the arrowheads.
The snakes have been horrible this year.
I haven't been out for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I haven't either because I probably couldn't see them. Well, Keith, thank you for talking to me. Is there anything else? You still got some family alive? Your sisters?
I've got one sister, 8 years older than me, alive in New Zealand. One of her sons lives in New Zealand, so she has grandchildren in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Her other son lives in England. So she has 2 sons alive, so I've got 2 nephews there.
That's good.
And there are 3 daughters of my other sister. Again, 2 of those live in New Zealand, 1 lives in Australia.
Yeah. Well, now, Marilyn has 2 sisters, the Wheelis sisters, and I enjoy playing bridge with Jackie. And let's see, there was something I was going to ask you, but I can't think what it was. Quick, tell me something.
I have never become a U.S. citizen, though I'm a legal immigrant.
Are you sure you're legal? I want to see
Oh,
your green
yes.
card, okay?
You want to see the amount of taxes I pay them?
Well,
SOBs.
okay, you've been traveling a lot since I've known you. I know you tried to go to the Antarctica 3 times, or
Yeah, I got there the 3rd time.
yeah, and that was a pretty rough trip. The earlier ones. What was your last trip?
Went to Croatia and Montenegro on the Adriatic Sea.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
I bet it was too. Do y'all have any plans for a trip this year?
No, the only thing we're looking at is maybe doing the rail trip across Canada.
Oh yeah, I bet that would be
But
interesting.
probably be next year sometime if we're still around.
Well, I hope we all are. So thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Okay,